Hey everybody! The purpose of today's video is to review how the body's adaptive immune system works and how vaccines can be used to protect a person from acquiring certain diseases in their lifetime. This video will also teach you about the importance of herd immunity, after which I will walk you through the data collection portion of our herd immunity lab activity. Let's start with a quick recap of the human immune system. The function of the immune system is to protect the body from foreign invaders. We've spent the last couple lessons looking at both the nonspecific innate immune response and the specific adaptive immune response. Today's video lesson will focus on the adaptive immune response and vaccinations. You will recall that the adaptive immune response involves the body's immune system responding to a specific threat. Let's walk through this diagram to review the steps of the adaptive immune response. First, macrophages ingest and digest a pathogen that they come across while patrolling the body. They will then present antigens to T helper cells. Antigens are molecular identification markers used to help cells in the body identify other objects as friends or foes. The T helper cells will send chemical signals that are needed to activate other white blood cells, thrusting your immune system into action. Some signals tell cytotoxic T cells to kill infected cells. This can be seen right up here. Others tell B cells to differentiate into plasma cells that produce shape-specific antibodies designed to mark the pathogen for extermination. So you can see that happening right there. The antibodies of the plasma cells will match the shape of the antigens present on the outside of the pathogen. These marked pathogens will then be eaten by macrophages. Also produced are memory B cells, white blood cells that can facilitate a much faster immune response in the event that the same invader attempts to strike again. These cells essentially memorize the characteristics of the pathogen and will search for that specific invader while they patrol the body. What are vaccines? Many people think of vaccines as cures to deadly diseases, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Vaccines are preemptive treatments that are able to stimulate the same adaptive immune response using less harmful forms of the pathogen. So that diagram that we just looked at, a vaccine will cause that same exact response to happen. The vaccine might include a dead or weakened virus. Measles, for example, is a virus that can be vaccinated against through the MMR vaccine. This vaccine offers protection from measles, mumps, and rubella after 2 doses taken at different points during the first 6 years of a child's life. The immune system will respond in the same way to a vaccine, with the body producing plasma cells to fight the invader, as well as memory B cells for future responses. The main difference is that the risk with vaccines is much lower than the risk of contracting the disease through natural means. Only those individuals with compromised immune systems or severe allergies to the ingredients found in vaccines are recommended to not receive these treatments. So again, I want to reiterate that vaccines are using dead or weak forms of a pathogen. And so that makes them much safer to introduce into your body than to try to go out and get the disease the natural way, because those natural diseases might be very deadly and might actually be very harmful to your body, and your immune system may not be capable of fighting them off as effectively. So this brings us to the importance of herd immunity. What is herd immunity? It is a condition that is met when a certain proportion of a population has been vaccinated and is considered to be protected from a certain pathogen. Different diseases have different thresholds for herd immunity that depend on a number of factors, which can include how easily a pathogen can be passed between people or which demographic groups are most affected. Epidemiologists use a value called basic reproduction number, which represents how many people in an unprotected population one infected person could pass the disease along to. Diseases with higher reproduction numbers require a larger percentage of the population to be vaccinated in order for the community to be protected. The purpose of herd immunity is to vaccinate a large enough percentage of people to ensure that the entire population is protected from a potential outbreak. It is most beneficial to those individuals who cannot be vaccinated due to medical reasons, as well as individuals who are most susceptible to disease. This would include the elderly, young children, and people with compromised immune systems due to other factors. A pathogen can make its way into a population a number of ways, but one of the most common ways that pathogens are introduced is through infected visitors from other parts of the world. Let's take a look at this slide and break down exactly what we're looking at. So these 3 different colors represent different people. Blue represents individuals who are not immunized, so not vaccinated, but are still healthy. Yellow individuals represent people who have received their vaccines and are healthy. And red individuals represent people who are not immunized, sick, and contagious. So these are people that could potentially pass on the disease. You'll notice that when no one is immunized, the disease can spread pretty quickly. So before we only have 2 infected individuals, now we have almost the entire population. And part of the reason for this is this is what we can see down here, is that when an infected individual comes in contact with a non-vaccinated individual, they're able to pass that disease on. And then that person will pass that disease to any other non-vaccinated individual that they come in contact with. When some of the population is immunized, the disease can still spread through some of the population, and it still spreads fairly quickly. So even though you still have some people that are protected, the majority of the people that were not protected or were not vaccinated are still being affected. And again, we can go back to this diagram to show that even with a few vaccinated individuals, that disease can still spread. However, when most of the population is immunized, the spread of the disease is constrained. It's kept within a certain part of the population. And so here are 2 infected individuals, and here are our 4 non-vaccinated individuals. But because there are so many people vaccinated, only one person ends up ultimately getting the disease. And the reason for that is, shown up here. So let's say that infected individual just happens to come in contact with a non-vaccinated person. Well, they're going to pass the disease on most likely. But now this person is only coming in contact with vaccinated individuals, so they're not passing the disease on any further. You can look at this person and this person here, and they're essentially protected by these non-vaccinated individuals, these vaccinated individuals. So they're providing a sort of barrier that prevents that disease from getting to that person. You have to think about it like if I interact with a person and I have a disease, they have a chance of getting that disease if they're not vaccinated. But if they are vaccinated, then they don't catch the disease, and I'm not able to spread my disease further into a population. And that's what herd immunity is all about. It's about protecting the individuals who are our most vulnerable people in our population by everyone else getting vaccinated and essentially preventing disease from spreading by putting up a big wall and saying you can't pass through this. So let's take a look at measles, and most importantly, let's take a look at an explosion of measles cases that happened in late 2014 and then early 2015. So measles is a disease that has gained a reputation in recent years. It's an infection of the respiratory system that is caused by an RNA virus, and symptoms include fever, cough, runny nose, red eyes, and rashes. Measles is a highly contagious airborne disease with a very high reproduction number. That means it's really able to spread very quickly through a population. You can contract it by, if someone who's infected sneezes on you and you breathe it in, right? That's an airborne infection. While it may not be an extremely deadly disease, measles outbreaks can spread quickly in unprotected populations. One of the most well-known recent measles outbreaks was the multi-state outbreak linked to Disneyland in California. This outbreak was determined to have likely started with an infected traveler who visited the amusement park in late 2014. This massive outbreak contributed to an extremely high total of 667 cases reported in 2014 alone. Data from the Center of Disease Control shows that the 2014 total was higher than any year since 2010. And so that data you can actually look at down here, and you'll notice that not only is it the highest since 2010, but when we look at the kind of normal range of cases, this number really sticks out as an outlier. And so that's largely in part because of this outbreak that happened in California and in Disneyland. Immediately following the explosions of measles cases in 2014 was a movement in the scientific community to remind people of the importance of vaccinations and protecting the most vulnerable individuals. Journalists continue to reference this outbreak in pieces that promote the effectiveness of vaccines and the danger that being unvaccinated poses to both the individual and the community as a whole.